Has everybody been to a new area? I'm sure everybody's went somewhere new and run aground. If you're looking on a chart and you're seeing 1 foot, 5 foot, and like real light blue, and then it drops off, it's a little darker blue, and you've got the little squiggly lines going around the edges. You want to look at that area real close. Those areas will hold fish. I would say in this little river right here, the Catalina River, which I've never heard of, but I would say if I was going to go there, I would start working this edge right here where it's 20 feet, and I'd work that where it comes up to 9 feet, and I'd work that 9 to 11 foot area right along that drop this time of year in the winter. Of course, in summer as it warms up, the fish will move up onto the bars. I went up to Jacksonville on my anniversary, my wife and I did. We went to St. Augustine, we went to Jacksonville, we hired a guide up there. And we caught a bunch of little redfish, 17, 18, 19-inch redfish. We caught a bunch of them. And I charter, I run trips all the time, and I learned a lot from this guy. I learned some new techniques on how to hook bait onto a jig head, different from what I was doing. They fish a lot up there on birds. You see the birds all the time standing on the shore, and they're just kind of dipping down. We go by, he goes, "Hey, see them birds over there?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "We'll come back here in an hour, we'll catch some fish there." We pass by them, come back in an hour, we're catching fish. Those birds are eating the same thing the fish are eating. They're eating crustaceans, shrimp, little bitty crabs, fiddler crabs, all kind of little crustaceans that are down in the mud. So if you're out on a low tide like we've been having in the mornings, and you see 10 or 12 birds along the shoreline, if it was me and I saw that, I'm coming back when the water's up. I'm going to come back and try it. Because those birds are there, and they're, like I said, they're eating the same thing the fish are eating. So watch for the birds all the time. And that holds true pretty much throughout the year. Wintertime, you watch for the shorebound birds, the egrets, the herons. You watch what they're doing, where they're at. In the summertime, you can go on the terns and the gulls because they're eating the white bait. Where there's white bait, there'll be mackerel, trout, ladyfish, tarpon, king mackerel. I mean, a lot of stuff along those lines. Fishing a new area, it can be. Fishing a new area, it can be difficult, but it's only as difficult as you make it. If you do your homework, you go on the websites like flashearth.com. You go on there and you really spend your time look on there, and you can see the troughs are pronounced. I was going to show you, but we can't get it up. The troughs, you can see them, they're just big. Let's see if I can maybe try to draw it here. I don't know how good it'll be, but I'll try it. You'll have a shoreline like that, and that's the shore. Shoreline like that, and you'll see an area like this. That kind of just goes like that. And that's here you're seeing ones everywhere, ones and twos, and here you're seeing 6, 5s, 4s. If I'm looking at that, I'm seeing mangroves, you got the dots, like that, that's showing you a shoal or an oyster bar, or rock piles. You're seeing that, you got 3 ambush points. You got shallow water off the oysters and rocks, you got deep water off the shallow water, and you got mangrove points. This is an area I'm going to come into and set down right there, and I'm going to start working all these edges. And I'm going to work those edges on low tide. As the tide rises, I'll work my way into that shoal or oyster bar or rock pile. And you can look, like I said, on Flash Earth or Google Earth, you can look out here at all these little spoils going out of the Anclote River. And all those spoils, I mean, everybody knows two tree at the end of the Anclote River. Everybody knows it. The first Grand Slam I ever got, which is a tarpon, at the time was tarpon, trout, redfish, and snook. Came off two tree. It's the first one I've ever had on my boat. And it came off two tree out there at the end of the Anclote River. I've caught black drum, trout, redfish, snook, tarpon, cobia, mackerel, everything out there. And it's a great ambush point. It's out at the end of the river. You know, the river's coming out, and your channel markers marking the way out. And here's this island out here at the end, like that. It's got a nice cut right between it. Great ambush point right there. Incoming tide, this side of it, throwing back to the hole. Same thing here. There's another hole right here. Set up here on an incoming tide, throw into that hole. They're all, you got to look at it and you got to try to find the ambush points, whether it be, like I said, the troughs, the shoals, the mangrove points. You can find on Google Earth and Flash Earth, you might see a mangrove shoreline that's perfectly straight like that. And then you'll see out here, you can tell it's shallower. It's like almost like a lighter color on Flash Earth. And then all this in this area is all dark. This being your mangroves right here. If we can ever get it up and running, I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. But this area, you know, whether it be a channel or not, along those mangroves, it's a great area to try. You can go in there and you can throw, you know, this time of year I would throw shrimp mostly. I've tried some cut bait, haven't had a lot of success with it. Most of the fish I've been catching are on shrimp and artificials. And the artificials that have worked the best for me have been the DOA paddle tail cow jigs and the DOA jerkworms. Some on the Gulf shrimp, but not a lot. Not a whole lot. I believe I told Sean about the paddle tails, and he's had some success with that. It's been a good bait. But when you're looking at a new area and you're fishing a new area, you got to think about what time of year you're fishing and what the fish are. This time of year, crustaceans, shrimps, and crabs. That's your best patterns. They're eating some creek chubs, but you gotta use your presentation accordingly. You know, summertime you're whipping it real fast. You can't do that in the winter. They're not going to eat it. In the wintertime, you got to really kind of drag it. And what I mean by drag it is when you send your bait out and you're working it back, you're just kind of dragging it, reeling your slack out, and dragging it, reel your slack out. Every now and again, bump. What that does is as that bait is working its way along the bottom with the jig head, and it's kind of sitting up like that a little bit. And as you're dragging it, it's creating a mud trail. So you're dragging it this way, and it's creating a mud trail back this way. When you hop it, it puffs. And what the fish are looking for a lot this time of year is they'll be sitting there just basically milling around. Just kind of sitting there waiting for something to happen, waiting for something to come by. And they'll see that trail coming, and it catches their attention. And then when you bump it, they see that puff, so they come and investigate. And you know, if you keep working it, keep dragging it along, eventually they're going to eat it. A lot this time of year, the fish are feeding off of scent. And I brought some Procure. I use the shrimp and the mullet scent, depending on what bait. If I'm using a bait like one of these jig bodies that looks more like a fish, I use the mullet, just for the fact I'm trying to imitate a finger mullet or a creek chub. If I'm using a DOA shrimp bodies, and I use the shrimp scent, but the scent does increase your bite, especially with the redfish. But there's a lot of different variables. You really got to think, again, time of year. You know, in the summertime, you know, you can throw these shrimp bodies. You'll catch some trout. You might catch the occasional redfish. But springtime, summertime, fall, they're not eating the shrimp as much as they're eating, you know, the greenbacks, the whitebaits, stuff like that. So you definitely want to mimic what it is that they're eating that time of year. Again, the ambush points are major. I don't know, really can't, it's kind of hard to show y'all on this map, this chart here, but everybody see like this creek right here? There's creeks like that all over this area, you know, from Newport Richie all the way to Boca Grande. There's little creek mouths, and a lot of times what they do, and this is what I've been seeing for this time of year, is the fish, when it's nice out like it's been the last couple of days, they'll push out on the flats. As it starts getting snotty like it's going to get the next couple of days, you know, wind's going to start blowing, the air temperature's going to drop, the water temperature's going to drop. What the fish are doing is they're pushing up into the creeks. They're working their way back. And we're finding the places we were finding keeper trout a month ago, they're 500 yards further up the creek now. They're not out close to the mouth, they're pushed further back. So you want to concentrate your efforts, you know, accordingly. If you've had a 20-degree drop in the temperature, like we get this time of year, you don't want to be out here on the flats, for one. They'll be barren, for the most part. The fish they'll hit these deep holes, dark bottoms, and they'll move, and they'll keep working their way back. That water is darker, has dark bottom, so it stays warmer. You know, there's the bait fish move back in there, the shrimp move back in there, the crabs are back there. We were in the Little Manatee River, and we came out of a creek, and there was a crab trap. It didn't have a buoy on it. There must have been 30 crabs in that trap. I don't know, I guess the guy lost it or something, but it was just loaded with crab. And, you know, we were catching fish all around that crab trap. They'll put pieces of, you know, hunks of mullet, hunks of ladyfish, stuff like that in those crab traps. Well, the crab traps are in deep water. I don't know, you hardly ever see them just sticking out of the water. Very rarely, especially this time of year. If you do, they're pretty much derelict traps. You know, nobody's checking them. But when you see the crab traps and you're in a deep creek, fish all around those traps. You can fish all around those traps, and you can catch redfish, trout, black drum, pretty much anything that's in the area will be around those traps. I have my clients regularly casting towards the crab traps. They produce fish. You've got a hunk of mullet in that crab trap, and the crabs are eating it, tearing off pieces. It's creating a natural chum line. You know? And they're also, I don't really want to recommend using them to navigate, but you can use the crab trap lines to navigate in and out of creeks if you see them, because most times they're in deeper water. But if you run aground, don't call me and say, hey, look, I was running these crab traps and I run aground. That won't be my fault.